All right, let's jump into things. 10 o'clock on the dot. 10th of July as well. So look, of course, a bit of news and that. Not really too much to sort of say going on at the moment, sort of economic calendar sort of wise. I mean, we had a bit of mixed data from China yesterday. Not really super impactful. Didn't really see a great deal of movement. Like one sort of in a bit of a sort of breakout at the moment, but again, look, it's one of those ones that just grinds. So, I would have thought maybe a little bit more of movement, but 720 is the level that we're looking for that one. But of course, we'll get to that when we sort of get to the charts. RBNZ held rates flat, pretty much well was expected. We saw a little bit of a sort of push up from New Zealand after that. But again, it's not really something I'm closely sort of paying attention to. A little bit of a sort of runoff with some proxy of this kind of stuff, like with these sort of matching pairs, like Aussie and New Zealand, Canada and US, and pound and euro, these kind of things. Sort of sometimes you get a little bit of sort of flow on effect, but yeah, for the time being, it was a bit of a non-event really across the rest of the charts. Through the rest of the night, a couple of speakers, but nothing really sort of happening going on here. I suppose we had the Fed minutes and that overnight, but as far as I can see, it was pretty low impactful in that, and I think pretty much it's the same sort of story because we're hearing Fed speakers talk all the time at the moment. Which I'll get to as well because we had yet another lot of sort of comments coming out last night. Um, it, it kind of takes the shine off. Oh, wow, what were they thinking with the sort of minutes by the time they come out? And so, yeah, the impact was like less than none. So, kind of sort of that's it for data sort of overnight. Even sort of moving through today, we don't really have anything. Like that's what I was saying at the start of the week. RBA was really the one that we were looking at for the whole week. Not really anything sort of through Asia or Europe and that. We've got unemployment claims. Now, this has sort of ticked down the last 2 months, well, sorry, 2 months, sorry, 2 weeks, and we're sort of seeing it back into the 30s because, again, the jobs numbers is really something that I think the market's going to be looking for in terms of sort of like maybe a little bit more of a push for Powell to sort of come over to the sort of cut side of stuff, because for the time being, as long as this is sort of stabilizing with inflation sort of at a lower level. There's no sort of real reason. Well, there's not no reason, but there's less incentive for them to cut. If we see a flip of that, so if we see the job numbers and that, obviously, sort of in this case, the unemployment numbers claims going up. Obviously, we had NFP last week with a fairly strong beat. Um, that with the potential of inflation, look, that's when people could sort of be a bit more on the sort of cut side. But while inflation is sort of still lower, I mean that's okay for now. But as he said, he's sort of like Powell's sort of waiting to sort of see what happens with this sort of tariff flow on thing. So I think the thing with the tariffs, I mean, it's back in the headlines at the moment. And I'll get to that in a moment. Is that no one really knows. Like everybody's got this assumption, and these people will be paying for it, and these things are happening. But you haven't really seen much of this sort of show up in the data as of yet. But Powell, he's the head of the Fed, and that's what he's sort of predicting, sort of over a potential for the next couple of months. Hence his sort of more reluctance to come around to the sort of cut side of things. Excuse me. So in terms of actual data, economic data, that's it. It's a very barren sort of week on the news front, even sort of riding out till tomorrow as well. Very much the same. Movers overnight in terms of, I guess, air quotes news, was we had another Fed speaker come out, and it was almost sort of these things you got to sort of put your little tinfoil hat on a little bit because of the timing of these sort of things. Like we had gold at a breakdown level, we had Aussie sort of moving down, we had DXY about to sort of push through its resistance, and just at this time, we have a Fed speaker coming out sort of saying, hey, look, you know what? Maybe we should cut in July. Market just like absolutely just freaks out, flips. Aussie jumps 40 points or 30, 35, 40 points or so. DXY gets smacked on the nose, and yeah, basically that. And then we had some ECB speaker come out as well, who was saying, "Look, I think we're done with cutting for now." So you've got sort of US potentially saying, "Hey, what we should be cutting." We got ECB people coming out saying we're done with cutting. Well, that's stronger euro, that's weaker USD, and bang, DXY folds down based off that as well. On top of that, we had a bunch of tariff data come out. So give me 2 seconds. I'll see if I can find it. Data, I should say, sort of headlines of this kind of sort of stuff. But look, delays hikes, now some new rates coming. But the thing I sort of saw from this, it's all sort of just, I mean, there's no real sort of big hitter countries in this country. I suppose Japan in here. Is this what was mentioned overnight, or is this just a general sort of thing of it all? This is the letters that might be sort of sent out. Anyway, the countries that actually were mentioned overnight were like Libya, Iraq, like it's kind of almost sort of like he's just picked these sort of token countries, which really are like okay. I mean, I was watching one guy and was saying that they do like I think 1.6 billion trade with Iraq. I mean, America trading with Iraq anyway? But he's come out and of course, hey, here we go, we're moving forward. Here's some tariffs on some people, and well, at the moment, who do we know moves with tariffs? It's gold. And yeah, so again, we had gold sort of coming down to its breakdown point, found itself a little support, and then bang, it's springboarded $30, $40 up in the other direction. So everything was about to go, and headlines, a little bit of data, and well, more headlines, sorry, no data. And basically, we saw everything flip back then. So, in terms of sort of news, data overnight, pretty snoozer. But oh well, that's all right. Enjoy it now because I'm sure it's going to get busy again soon. All right, so let's jump onto some charts. Fix this. Computer update overnight. So this is DXY. Um, so this is what I was talking about last night. We had this little breakout attempt. If we get onto a smaller something, you can see this is where we were about to move, and that little headline came out of I I didn't say who it was. I don't really care. Which I suppose we should pay attention actually because it's whatever sort of Fed speaker is obviously sort of more in the hawkish camp. So it's good to know when these people are talking and what their kind of view is, because I haven't seen the market move this much off Fed commentary for a long time, if ever. So yeah, I mean, it was very impactful here, and we were sort of nice little triangle break up. Boom, actually had this throughout the day. I thought we were just going to go. No, came back, closed that gap, new high. I mean, it had everything set up like it was about to go, and then the commentary comes out, and bang, and dribble, 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 dribble. You gotta get a little bit sort of like, come on, mate. That's a bit tinfoil hat on these situations of the timing of this stuff. So anyway, look, it is what it is. So now we got to just trade what we can with it all. Look, if we carry this through and we say this is its little recovery channel, I did think this was getting a little bit tight. I mean, there's only so long a channel can sort of before it sort of runs out of puff and that. But as you can see, 1, 2, 3 attempts into this sort of resistance zone, and given whatever happened, headlines, this and that. Now a bit of the tariff debacle sort of stuff. Because if we look back previously, obviously, I mean, there's a number of factors that led us here, but one of the big drivers to get US dollar lower was around tariffs, and sort of uncertainties and all these kind of bits and pieces. That's been a big driver to the downside with US dollar. And so, you've got the Fed speaker coming out saying, hey, maybe we should cut in July. Okay, good on you, mate. And then you've got a little bit more of this sort of tariff, albeit sort of two seemingly, I mean, nothingness kind of countries like Libya, and like the market's like, oh, geez, we better sell down. Iraq, oh wow, let's bail out. Like, you know what I mean? It's maybe some sort of like, hey, it's a bit of a flow-on effect of it all. You know what I mean? As in they're doing tariffs here, so he's moving forward with other ones. But the countries that kind of really matter in this situation all seem to be sort of pushing back, and because they're pushing back, the deadlines get pushed down the road, which I sort of covered the other day, where I said, the can's been kicked down the road to the 1st of August. So, I don't know. It's kind of like, I still think we probably have a little bit higher, but I would say that's probably the justification for a little bit of a pullback on US dollar at the moment. Okay, so where to from here? Look, it's hard to sort of say with this because it's becoming a little bit choppy up through these areas here. I mean, look, we could say that there was a little bit of support here and a little bit sort of down at 97.2. So look, see how this thing sort of reacts at 97.30 here. Underneath that, 97.20. Underneath this, I think we could be in for a little bit of a lower, sort of a more sustained sort of little pullback. So where's my little zone? I'd say that is the area you want to sort of try and hold above to sort of say, okay, look, you can find a little bit of a range, excuse me, in this sort of top area here. Look, I will put this in here. I've got that little red line. I think that might be a fib or so, but as you can see, this was a little bit of a support, then like almost a little bit of a fake out coming down here. Where was this one? Back on Tuesday. So yeah, they're the two levels I'm looking for. I think if you do get down underneath, 97.20, I think you could see this, pull back a little bit further. And, from a straight, like, whatever reason actually got it to move, it's attempted 3 times to get through this resistance. It's failed. You're going to see a pullback on it. So let's actually drag a fib over this and see where we might sort of be coming up. So this little support here coming in 97.30 is obviously around that 38% retracement. Now, DXY is not shy of deep retracements, meaning that this could realistically sort of come back down to these levels over here and still regain a little bit of effort or composure to try and move back up over here. But, at the moment, breaking this channel, 3 attempts into the resistance, lack of any real sort of catalyst to sort of get this thing sort of moving up, talk of tariff, all these kind of things, it kind of, I guess, justifies the idea that, yeah, you'd see a little bit of a sort of pullback down over here. So I think where it pulls back to is going to be important. I think if we sort of break these levels here, chuck it on snooze, wait for these lower 78% sort of pullbacks back down 96, 70, which is a little bit of a pullback down here, certainly. Yeah, I think it's a bit hard because, as I said, you've lost the momentum pulling back down here. If it can hold and bounce from this 38, then there's a good chance that we sort of come back up over here. But I think the fact that you've broken this sort of rising support, that needs to be really kind of, the price needs to be paid for that, which means you're going to be at minimum probably sort of consolidating at the lows down over here. I don't think it's about to sort of turn around and just shoot straight back up into that sort of resistance zone. I think it needs to gain a little bit of sort of a bit of energy, bit of strength in that on this little pullback here. So stay above 97.20 and you're sort of playing in this area up over here. Break 97.20, then I think we're looking for a deeper sort of correction through this move here. I don't think it's necessarily the kind of things that's going to get you like major breakdowns or anything, but certainly a little bit of sort of warranted cooling off. So we jump across, got gold, and gold, as you can see, kind of held the support area. Let's go back to the main chart that we're using. So held where it needed to hold, I suppose. If we get back onto like higher time frame here, we can see that this is an area that's very crucial for gold to try and sort of get down under, and came down here, whichever, whatever, bang, buy a step back in. Where are we on here? This is a daily, so there's no bottom wick on this one here, so I wouldn't be surprised if we could probably sort of push out a little bit here. Again, look, these sort of things, I don't think this is like the groundbreaking thing. I don't think the fact that they've, sort of smacked on 20% or 25% on Libya is going to get gold markets back up to sort of 3,400. I just don't think that's really the case for it. If we sort of drag this through here, maybe we could get a little bit of a, whoops, a little bit of sort of falling resistance happening here. Let's fix this one up. Yeah, so look, I would say sort of gold to a certain degree may get a little bit of sort of action off this, but again, I'm not about to sort of get out and start buying gold. I think above 60 or 67, this kind of sort of levels over here, you could see starting to form maybe a larger sort of range up over here. But again, I'm not really in that camp, and I don't think this is the catalyst that's going to get it there. I think this is more just sort of like a little bit of a, okay, hey, look, we got somewhat of a justification, i.e. sort of like some tariff talk, potential cutting of well, not potential, but like talk of potential cutting in July. Those two factors have kind of sort of added to the idea of, hey, maybe we should sort of get out of US dollar a bit and push this back up over here. But again, I don't think that's going to be the end of the US dollar or DXY in this move. I think it's just a little bit of a correction. I think this will be a correction with gold. I think the flows will come back into US dollar and they'll sort of be coming back out of gold. So look, above, let's put it over here, put it on warning. I mean, if you get up to say 43, I'm not a big fan of this falling resistance. A bit more of a touch up, not really. Um, Maybe above 43 and that you might sort of start to look a little bit more bullish and definitely above sort of 70. But for the time being, this RSI doesn't sort of fill me with a lot of confidence. You've got no bottom wick on the daily. I could see this maybe sort of move up a little bit and then sort of maybe just sort of like roll over and then push back down. I think another attack on the 80s will be the time to go for it all because what it's doing is basically just sort of milking out everybody because this is a big breakout level. Yeah, it came down here. That was that little bear flag that we hit like right on the sort of price, right on the top of the price target there. And everybody's short. Okay, let's stop them all out, go above the highs, boom, 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 back down over here again. And as you can see, like as much as this is sort of like a bit of a push up over here, you do have a little bit more of, probably a little bit happier with it using this actually. Don't need that one there. Doesn't seem to line up perfectly, but I'm a stickler for things being very symmetrical. So we'll see how we go. We can get this one. Let's just run with this at the moment. Um, let's get, whoops, that one. Let's get rid of this one. Yeah, so this is kind of my sort of feeling with it all, that we'll probably sort of come into this area through here around the sort of 20s and that, and then sort of roll back down towards the lows over here. I think another sort of push through into the 80s will be the time that it does sort of sell down. But again, look, this thing could definitely squeeze up. We could see the same sort of thing we saw here. It was coming down, squeeze up, take out the highs. So even if it sort of comes back up to 50, I'm still not in the camp of, okay, yeah, we're going back up to 3,400. I think it needs a little bit more than some tariffs on Libya and Iraq to sort of really get this thing back into the sort of fear mode of, okay, let's go buy and sort of hedge everything with sort of positions in gold. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we sort of get a little bit of resistance through here, a little bit of support previously, nice little sort of confluence around the sort of mid 20s, low to mid 20s, and then sort of look to sort of target back down to sort of the 80s over here if we see US dollar find its feet a little bit and try to sort of push back up and hold those zones. Pretty much what I'm looking for is if DXY fails to hold that 97.30, that could be where we see this thing dribble up a little bit higher. But should we sort of find some support earlier on DXY, I think we'll find the corresponding resistance on gold there as well. Flip along. Aussie is really just not doing much at all. It's fighting back here. We've really just absolutely. Let's have a look on a daily with this. Excuse me. So obviously, sort of bang, we had that sell down off the highs here, back down to the 50% of this bounce move. A bit of a sort of a nothingness spinning top day yesterday, spinning wheels, man. It just sort of thought about it. I think, look, if you can get above 60, maybe you're warranted to have a shot back up over here. To me, this RSI doesn't really scream, hey, look, we're going back up. But in saying that, this has been the year of V-shaped recoveries. I mean, look at these sort of moves here. I mean, not even talking about this one over here. But every time we've been looking to sort of come down, big sell down, whoop, straight back up, whoop, straight back up. So, you know what I mean? If this thing did happen to just sort of grind back up over here, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, how is this happening? It just seems to be what is absolutely happening at the moment with a lot of these things, but in this case, obviously, just with Aussie. So look, it's tried to sort of come back down. Obviously, we were sort of, where was it? Around 12. So I think it may have been around this point the other day. It's on the 4 hour candle where we had that big push up off um, the shock rate decision, undid the move, chopped around, chopped around, chopped around. As you can see, big wicks on both sides of this stuff yesterday. I think really, realistically, we can see that they're slightly moving up their bid over here, though while we do have a flat line, so that would be giving you this kind of, albeit sort of awkward. Too many coffees this morning, perhaps. This kind of awkward, kind of like sort of ascending triangle thing coming through here. So I think a close above 50 may open it up to sort of be back into sort of playing around this area up over here. Maybe look for some of these sort of like body fills around 70. It looks a little bit overbought here. So I would say that's pretty much the area. Let's actually put a little breakout box around these areas here. I want to see above these wicks, and I probably want to see it close outside this area because, as you can see, although we had long, big pushes down, every single time managed to sort of close up in this area over here. So this is the little breakout box I'm looking for, and I think this is what's going to give us our direction in that. Two things of this. One, if we do come down here, put this in place. If we do come down here, well, you're breaking this sort of, this isn't really a rising support, I guess, kind of, but whatever. The general idea, you can see they're slowly moving their bid up, moving their bid up. If you do come down here, close down underneath, say 20, I think that could be opening the door to sort of come back down and test these sort of 90s levels. Alternatively, if we're looking topside with it all, I think a close above 50 will be opening it up. And I mean, look, you're looking between 76 and 80 up to this zone over here. So let's just update these a little bit. Looking for this area here, looking for this area here. Um, Look, I still think that it is warranted for the downside, but this thing is just stubbornly strong. It's just that the difference a little, I suppose we had these kind of little bounces, didn't we? And then sort of grinded in the area and then broke up for another sort of push up there. It really depends on what they want to do with the US dollar here. If they want to dribble the US dollar a little bit lower, well, okay, you'll see, as I said, gold will drift up around 50s, sort of Aussie up around sort of like 65, 70s. I just don't think these things, these latest turns of event, are really the things that are going to give us the next leg of major breakouts. I think we're just maybe looking for a larger kind of range around this area here. But for me, in the short term, above 50 and below 20 for closes. Move along, we got silver. Silver's very much coming to a point here. It looks, if we put it on daily, I think it looked a little bit sort of, it's not looking great, to be honest. And if you look at this little negative divergence that we've got going on over here, this kind of, if I was long on silver, I'd be worried a little bit about this because, as you can see, right back up to testing those highs, but look at the RSI. It barely got off the ground to get it back up there, and you can see subsequently, whoops, what's going on here? Subsequently, we've seen it just be sold into. So we're really coming into the point of this sort of wedge, this rising wedge, which obviously rising wedge is a topside reversal move. I think sort of like it's going to be quite interesting should we get down into this level here. Let's put an alert on it because this is going to be something. Okay, so confluence of supports, eyes on it, whatever. Just so I can remember what I'm doing with it all. Look, I'm not going to be first into this trade here. What I am looking for is a break underneath this zone, this little grind box that we've been in, and then look for some sort of back test and obviously confirmation on a lower low after that breakout move through here. But I mean, look, if you were to sort of say that, hey, this was the triangle, the wedge, and you took this just as the base here, I mean, you could do it further back if you're one of those sort of people, but I don't think so. That gives you a measure move way back down, sub 30. That's huge. I don't think it's necessarily going to get there. And certainly if we do get back down over here, I'd like to be probably a bit of a buyer down in these areas around the 61%. But to me at the moment, given the negative to sort of divergence sort of coming up here, I don't know if it actually technically got to a negative divergence, but you know what I mean. Like I've covered with this stuff close enough, good enough with these sort of things. It doesn't have to necessarily be flying out the top here. We can see that the effort to get it back up to where it was previously is somewhat lacking. So it may not have actually gone up and made technically a new high, but you can still use that. That with the wedge setup, which is if you look back here, this is the same thing we had, that smaller wedge, negative divergence. This has obviously got a horizontal to work with here, which I guess would be maybe this one here a little bit, not so much. This has been about a month or so it's been up in this area here. I think there's very much sort of opening up to the idea of a downside move here. Because this is, you know, you got to think who's buying it at this point here. You know, you see a lot of silver people and they're sort of like, you know, they'll have these like sort of charts and you know, here's my weekly chart, and my weekly chart has a cup and handle, and the price target's $55 or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's fine. And look, I'm not saying it can't go up there, and it probably will go up there, but you got to be realistic. Oh, well, I guess depends what you're doing with it all, but you know what I mean? If you're trading, there's no point using a monthly chart. That's my point. You know, people use a monthly chart with you know these grandiose price targets. That's fine. As you can see, it could still go up higher. It can also pull back 20% or whatever it did. What did this pull back actually? Yeah, 17%. You know what I mean? Like, so that's my point. That sort of like, you know, if you saw a 17% pullback from here, that's all the way down here, which is very much obviously the same size as that sort of drop off move through here. So look, it's not to sort of say that it can't go there, but just given, you know, and this is a daily, which is a higher time frame than I normally sort of conduct myself on. But I think this could be something that, yeah, could sort of open us up for a little bit of a pullback down here. And certainly, look, if I get a chance to buy it around these 30s levels, I'd be a lot more interested buying it here than I would be buying it here when it's been stuck in this box for a month. Because there's going to be, obviously, there's people buying this, buying this, buying this, buying this, buying this. So this is going to be a juicy amount of stops just sitting around this 35 level here. So that would make me cautious about buying this thing at the moment. Move along. So we got copper. Obviously, we had that big explosion the other day. It seems to be actually holding quite well. I said there's more of an idea of the sort of the pullback, which you know exactly we did actually get. Sort of moved up over here, and there's a nice sort of ugly little candle. What's the thing here? Have a look. You know, it's a near 4% candle, but look at this move on the open here. And bang, it's moving up here again. So, look, I've been on the sideline. I missed this one. That's fine. As I said, this is where I wanted to get in, that 38%. It's just gone bonkers through this thing. I mean, that was what, 17% in 10 minutes or something. Look, again, I still think the risk is more for a sort of bit of a pullback. Um, I think you're crazy if you're buying it up here. I think you've either got it and you're sort of hoping for a continuation, or you're, yeah, I don't know. I don't know who would be buying it after all this. Because I think the idea is that more that, you know, maybe they sort of go, hey, look, you know what, we're not going to put on this big thing. You know, I mean, there's a break there. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's going to 650. I don't know. Having missed this thing, I've kind of lost a little bit of interest in it for now. I'm more interested in sort of maybe on some retests of these levels over here. But for now, it sort of just seems just bonkers to be this high. And I think, as I said, you know, in a very roundabout way of it, I think it's more of a chance of they go, hey, you know what, we're not going to tax it. We're not going to tariff it so hard. And then you see some sort of bigger sell-off kind of thing. But certainly, look, it's back, it's moving, it's bullish. So I'm not going to short it at this point. But maybe if you get back down to these levels, look for a buy. And we got USD China and a great little start here. Bang, selling straight back down again. Frustrating, frustrating. Um, as you can see, the big sort of wedge is what I'm playing here. Though, just because we've got the breakout back test, high, looks great. We're still in this little range zone here. So it's looking more constructive than it has previously. But obviously, you know, given everything that we've heard overnight, first thing this morning with Asia and that, they're just bang, let's sell US dollar. So, a little bit of a pullback down here. I would like to see it hold these lows on this back test here. I think if you do get back below 7166, this kind of area here, I'm going to call this, I suppose it could be a topside test of this falling resistance. But again, you just don't want too much dribble, 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 dribble. It's just, you know what I mean? Like, you want to see this momentum sort of carry on. There's a little bit of a support running up through this area here. So yeah, I'd say sort of pretty much you want to hold the bottom of this box. If you break underneath this box here, I think I just call this pretty much a failed breakout attempt, and you're looking back down sort of 714s for a retest down there. But look, it's still looking somewhat constructive, but you just want to see that momentum continue a little bit. This is not a great looking sort of candle setup here at the moment. That's the thing with these with not much of a driver at the moment. Um, you can see these things sort of just wane a little bit without having that sort of big push. And also just finish off with the gold silver ratio, because this one's coming into this support area, which we've sort of seen. This is a rising support from back in May last year. So what's that? Sort of 14 months. So 14 months rising support. Moving up, it's got a little bit of a reaction through here. A little bit of falling support here. Let's see what happens with this. A little bit of a wedge through here. And this is obviously sort of adding into the old idea that we see gold sort of pushing up here a little bit. If this thing does pick up and move, I don't think it is about to. It seems to be it's really hit a snooze button the last couple of weeks or so, or through this area here. If we do see a bit of a push up here, this could be something that sort of gets silver popping down here a little bit as well. But yeah, it's just something worth sort of noting coming off this big sort of rising support, a little bit of a wedge here. So obviously that would warrant a bit of a push up here. Maybe you sort of come into a little bit of a sort of resistance around this point. Whoops. And this point is just over here. Give this a little bit of a push up in that. But again, look, I just don't think this is about to explode back up the top side over here. But we will see. We will see. All right, quick one today. That's it from me.